Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you to the TaoTeChing sharing session. We are going to study chapter 16 together today. The title is Return to the Origin. So this title is based on the translation here. I want to say the title can change to Return to the Root, Return to the Source, or Return to the Origin. So they will all be fine. So this chapter is really important because Lao Tzu wants to remind us to find our true self. A lot of time we forget about where we really come from. Have you have a pet in your lifetime? What about the example of phone? Have you ever lost your phone? So if we have a pet, say we lost our pet, and we will be very, very worried. If we lost our phone, we will be very worried too. But imagine after looking for some time, we find it, we will be so happy. So Lao Tzu wants to tell us that in our life, there's always something that we forgot to look for, which is our true self. So this return and recover, it's an action to recover something that we already have, something that we have, but we lost it, such as the patient in the hospital, perhaps they lost their health and they want to recover their health, or the prisoner in the prison, they lost their freedom, but at some point they want to be able to recover their freedom. So it's important for us to understand what we have lost in our life and what needs to be recovered. Let me begin with the etymology of the second text here, this one here. So this word is mean. We can interpret this text with two perspectives. First one is the literal meaning, which is fate, life, and destiny. But in our chapter here today, it's referring to the origin, the source, and the root. This text here, this word is pronounced as mean. If we look at it from the horizontal perspective, you will see the shape of mouth here. And then here you see maybe like a house. A person is kneeling down. So here we can interpret as a person is kneeling down and then he's speaking something. What is he speaking? Perhaps is to a higher being. Maybe it's ordering command. So we can interpret this way, or we can say that it's our life depends on what we say. Our speech is a manifestation of our inner state. If we cuss a lot, then our life will become miserable. And if we always say good words, positive words, then our life will be in positivity. So a lot of time our life is based on what we say and what we manifest from our inner self. This word can also interpret from the vertical explanation. As you can see here on the top, it means human. The middle one means one. And the bottom one is kneel and bow, which you can see this person here. And regarding bowing, it doesn't matter whether it's the bowing the Eastern way or the Western way, it's all the same. Our knee on the floor, usually. It doesn't matter Western or the Eastern way. So what does this picture tell us? It tells us that we must bend our knee in order to be humble and to be selfless, to serve others. If we want to serve others, sometimes we have to bend ourselves, maybe bend our back or bend our knee. This is also to say that the way to respect heaven. And also, if we can bend our knee, bend our back, that means we are loving one another. So this is the meaning of mean in this figurative way. That means submission to the higher source, the universe. Acceptance of life is derived from the source. So why do we want to kneel? And that's because we understand we are derived from the source. We are part of the source. And we ask the source to help us. That's why we have this gesture here. So it means submission and acceptance from the command from the higher source. The next etymology I want to introduce is fu. So fu can interpret two different ways. First is literal, the other one is the figurative. So the literal meaning is going back and forth, coming and going as a cycle. Let me start from here. So this word fu, it's made out of two characters, this one and this one. This one represents one person is walking, but then there's another person on the top. So it's two persons walking together. They walk. And then, so this is what it means. And this one, the pictogram is right here. This character is also a simplified version of the fu. Okay, so if we look at this etymology, you can see this picture here. This picture symbolizes village, town, or city in the enclosed area. Maybe enclosed by the brick wall, by the fence, or by the tree. So it's a city with some kind of a boundary. And then here you can see there is like a footprint going and then come out. And then you see there's 1 foot here. So with this, it extends to this one. So this one, I have another picture here. Here, it symbolizes the enclosed area, which is what I mentioned, the village, the town, or the city. And this little thing, the square on the top and on the bottom, it represents the entry and the exit point. So with this, it becomes this. So literally, it means going back and forth to the village, to the town, or to the city as a daily routine, and also part of the cycle. Figuratively, it means return to a place that you have been before, lost and found, and recover. So going back and forth can be interpreted with these two diagrams. One is like the pendulum going back and forth. The other way to look at it is like the cycle of life, from the creation of life to growth, to harvest, and to destruction. So this is another interpretation of fu. Therefore, we come to this chapter title. Fu is to return. Ming is the figurative meaning is the source, the original, the root. Therefore, I named this chapter Return to the Origin. In this chapter, Lao Tzu tells us the significance of returning to our root and why. Before I go into our chapter today, let me ask you a question. Where are we returning to? And what are we recovering from? So let me begin telling you that we are all perfect. We are all perfect because we all have this true self within us, because we are limitless. We have intuition and full of instinct, and this is full of perfection. We are the original pure consciousness that is full of purity. This is our real self. And our true self is full of joy, alive expansion, openness, perfection, and this is what we are born with. But then you will say, wait a minute, I don't think I'm perfect. You are right, we are not perfect because you are looking at it from the false self perspective. Our false self is made out of our physical body in terms of our body. And our mind and thought, it's the accumulation from our family value, our cultural background, our past experience from the past, from this life and then past from the previous life. So our false self is not perfect, has so many flaws, and it's temporary. And this false self, especially on our thought, it fluctuates a lot. It has a lot of negative expression, such as, I can use this adjective to describe it. It's dim, heavy, darkness, nervous. It will cause us to feel nervous, and we can also feel exciting and happy too. And we can also feel joy and happy. However, this kind of joy and happy, it's only temporary. After the full experience of happiness and the excitement, what comes next? Next one may be loneliness and separation. So this is the characteristic of the false self. The truth is that we are all born this way. It's very unfortunate. All the physical beings, all the sentient beings are born this way. There's no one that's not born this way. And unfortunately, this is the manufacturer default setting that we have. When we are born, we come with this false self. However, we also come with this true self. But this true self, it comes in very small because our manufacturing setting, it's pre-programmed this way. Our false self dominates the true self. So when we are born, we tend to use our bodily sensation to live our life. And it's very rare that we are aware of our true self. So the purpose of our cultivation is to make you aware. Hey, we have this true self, and then we also have this false self. Most people, they know their life, just have this false self. Of course, they don't call it false self. They call it, this is myself. I live my life this way. Whatever I see is true. If I don't see, it's not true. So because we are born this way, this is the default setting that we came out, we tend to use this default perspective to manage our life. And we tend to use this perspective to look at others. And I look at myself with my false self. Of course, when I look at everybody, it's so much imperfection, so much misery, so much fraud, because I'm looking at it from my false self. But if I would say I am perfect, I have my original true self, and then I can also see other people have their true self, then from that turning point, you will see other people are perfect too. And when they are experience their imperfection, it's because their true self is being covered by their false self. It's just like the image here. Most of our time, our life is like the sun being covered by the clouds. Our sun is overshadowed by the false self. That's why we live in misery. A lot of time, true self want to talk to us, but in a very, very small voice. Our false self speak in a louder voice. For example, when we wake up in the morning, I know I need to wake up, but then my false self will give me a lot of excuse. Joanna, you still have 2 more minutes. Just go back to sleep. Time is not up yet. Continue your sleeping. Or maybe you stop the alarm and then continue. So the false self maybe just tell me once, time to get up, but the false self will give me a lot of excuse. There are times that I'm supposed to get up and to do something, but then my false self will tell me a lot of excuse. And that excuse is very persuasive. And you speak very loud, and the true self, it's just like whispering in a very gentle, subtle way. And also when we're doing an exercise too, I go to the gym almost every day, but then there are times that my false self will say, Joanna, let's take a break. You've been exercising so many days, let's take a break. So then I will tell myself to take a break. So then 1 hour pass, and then another hour pass. And then my false self say, oh, it's okay, then don't go today, just go tomorrow. But during this process, when the false self is communicating to me, I feel dim and dark. I don't feel joy. But as soon as I say, no, right now I suppose to go to the gym. And then I go to the gym, and by the time I start my exercise, I feel so much joy. So a lot of time when we hear our true self is talking to us, we should listen to the small voice. And also the false self, because it's our manufacturing setting, it gives us a lot of imperfection. It gives us what we need. Last year, I purchased a laptop. And the laptop, I bought it from Best Buy. It comes with full functionality. It also comes with a lot of apps that I don't really need. So this app sometimes will create limited usage of on a laptop. So what we need to do is when we get a computer, we need to eliminate some app that we don't use. So this is our false self. If we can eliminate the thing that we don't need, then we can reach the state of true self. And a couple months ago, my computer have internal problem. It needs time to replace the ROM memory. So I took it to the repair shop. I spent like $150 to replace the system. And when I got my computer back, it was in full function. But when I look at the control panel and the home screen, I was in shock because everything looks so simplified. It only have the app that I need. For the app that I don't need, it's already gone. The computer company did not install those for me because those are for advertising purpose. So having the laptop is just like the false self. We purchased the laptop in the manufacturing setting. It has a lot of apps that we don't need. But then after we clean it up, then it becomes our tool that we truly need. That's our true self. So let's begin with our session for today. This is the content for chapter 16. Chapter 16 is a lot, but I can break it down to 3 sections. The first section is these 2 verses here. Lao Tzu talk about self-cultivation, and with the diligent self-cultivation, a wise person can observe the life activity of other forms. In the second section, Lao Tzu talks about everything must return to the root. And Lao Tzu used root as an example, as an analogy that refers to humans' true nature. If the plantation has roots, what is our human root? Our human root should be our true self, or where we come from. The third one is talking about the human perspective, the heaven perspective, and the Tao perspective. The human perspective to the heavenly Tao perspective, they are all the same. If we can practice to our full cultivation in the human perspective, we would have reached the perspective of the heavenly Tao. And here I want to highlight it to you on the second section here. It's talking about returning to their root, stillness, the source. This is talking about the Tao, the internal cultivation. After talking about the internal cultivation, Lao Tzu continue on the external cultivation, which is the De. And knowing the natural law is the transition between the internal cultivation and the external one. As you can see, external cultivation, Lao Tzu used the action, such as embracing, being impartial, being kingly, according to heaven. This is the way how we're supposed to live. Let's start from the first verse. Achieve the ultimate emptiness. Diligently maintain the serenity. The key word here is achieve. Some translation use the word attain. Attain to me sounds like it's something that we want to attain, but there's nothing to attain because it's something that we already have. It's a state that we want to reach. We can use the word reach or achieve. Achieve to the state of our true self. Therefore, I use this word achieve. And emptiness. What is emptiness? Emptiness is to talk about our false self. How to empty our false self. Our false self is made out of the body and non-body part. Lao Tzu is talking about the non-body part because we all need this body to cultivate our true self. So talking about the non-body part, it means we have no greed, no desire, eliminate the thing that we don't need because it's not listed in our true self. No hatred, no discrimination, no judgment, not being arrogant. In other words, it's being selfless. So if you can reach this state, that means you reach the state of emptiness. And of course, when you reach the state of emptiness, that's the highest level of Tao cultivation. So this first verse here is talking about keep the genuine and remove the extra. Keeping the genuine is keeping whatever we have in our true self. Our true self is full of light, illumination, brightness, all this beautiful character here. The virtue does not stop here. The virtue adds on. And removing the extra, this is not in our true self. This resides in our manufacturer default. We are all born this way. We all have the capacity to express our anger. We all have the ability to have this greed, illusion, desire, hate, worry, and judgment, and etc. But this is our false self. We're supposed to remove it. So the task is like keeping our mirror clean. We need to keep our mirror clean. That's an important task. But not just clean it once a while. We need to constantly keep it clean. So just having this part achieve the ultimate emptiness is not good enough. We need to maintain the serenity. Maintain is to keep daily basis, on hourly basis, such as in chapter 15. In chapter 15, it tells us how to long last and how to maintain it. The key is to not overfeel. Chapter 15, the last two verse says, the person guarding this path prefers not to overfeel. Due to not overfeel, one would preserve the ancient, not create the new. The ability or the patience to keep it the way it is, to keep the mirror clean, it's also important too. And we have to do it diligently with sincerity, because if we cannot do it sincerely with a deep belief, we cannot perform the task. And here I want to point out to you emptiness and serenity. It seems like Lao Tzu wants to use the word emptiness because emptiness is the first state that you reach. Once you reach the state of emptiness, then you will have serenity and tranquility. Of course, tranquility is the untroubled state of mind. So how do we reach this state? Emptiness, serenity, and tranquility. It's very difficult. Since we discuss about made out of two parts, the true self and false self, one thing we can do in our life is to lessen the thoughts from our false self. So this is like watching a TV. I think before the internet comes about, we only have TV to watch, right? And imagine that our TV only have two channels. And the two channels being true self and false self. So if we can turn the TV on, you have a choice to watching two channels. Which one would you choose? The false self channel will give us a lot of excitement, will give us a lot of emotional fluctuation. Some people find that joyful. That's why the movie maker makes a lot of money. The story of the movies provide emotion for us to fluctuate during the time that we watch the movie, and people cry, people laugh, some people love that. But then there is the channel of a true self. The true self will give us love, harmony. It does not have that much fluctuation, but it gives you longer peace, longer harmony, and longer joys. So the false self, it's a channel that will give us anxiety, give us worry, give us a fluctuation of life. Either channel that we choose, it will have a different effect in our life. So from this point on, if we encounter any situation, say if you have two channels to watch, one is the channel of true self, the other one is false self. Which one would you choose? Either channel will provide different outcome. And you are only allowed to watch one channel at a time. So from this point on, I want to remind every one of you, if you are facing some situation, try to select the channel of true self. because it will just give you a better outcome. And because our manufacturing default setting, false self, that's what we are equipped with, and that's what we were made of. Therefore, we tend to look at everything from the false self perspective. Lao Tzu wants us to adjust our perspective from the false self, which is the default setting, to the true self. It's possible to do that because now you are aware of it. Some people, they are not aware. If you think you are watching the false self perspective on the false self channel right now, you are in this situation, try to convert yourself to a different channel, because the remote control is always on your hand. It's not on other people's hand. So we can explain this in this picture here. Imagine the clear sky is the true self, the cloud is the false self. So what we need to do is to remove the clouds. In this verse, it has this text here, and I find that maybe it's important to talk about this because this text talks about the true self and the false self. So Jing, it means stillness and tranquility. Jing is made up of two characters, this character and this character. So this character, literally, it means green, like the green color. As you can see in the image here, on the top part, it's like a different layer of soil. There's a sprout coming out from this three level of a soil. Maybe it's a bean sprout, maybe some kind of seed, it's sprouting. And then here it's a soil pot container that shapes like this. So literally, it means something coming out, and that's referring to plantation, some kind of a growth, new growth. Figuratively, it means our original pure consciousness. It's the original thought. Think about every year by December 31st, we always have a New Year resolution. That's our sprouting thought and the New Year's. And how many months can we keep up with our New Year resolution? Many people have New Year resolution on building a better body shape, eating healthy, more exercising. In this text, it means the intuitive and instinctive awareness. The second text, it's this one. Zheng, it means fighting. Literally, you can see here there's a hand right here, and then here's another hand. Can you see here? It looks like they are fighting for this property, and it looks like a cow horn. So they are fighting among each other, and you can see from this picture better. This is the horn from the cow, and then two hands right here. So here we can interpret as the fighting between true self and false self. Have you ever had a situation where you are debating to yourself and you don't know which one to go with? In reality, that's the fighting of your true self and the false self. Keep in mind, our true self speak in a very small voice, and our false self speak in a louder voice. So that's what they are fighting about. So if a person can be aware of the fighting constantly, that means this person is reaching the state of stillness or tranquility. Most people, they cannot reach this state because they are not aware of their true self. And I'm sure every one of us here understand this term here, because we understand we are made out of our true self and false self, and we are fully aware of it. And when we are fully aware of it, we understand who is talking. Is this my false self talking, or is this my true self talking? So when we are aware of that, we can be in tranquility. The next verse is, all beings go through life activities. I observe their return. So when we read this sentence, we should read it from the first sentence. So in the first sentence, Lao Tzu say, achieve the ultimate emptiness. So the cultivator or us, we already reached to this stage. And we can also maintain diligently the serenity. And with that life skill, we can observe life activities from other form, other being, other species, and I observe their return. Because when you reach to this stage, you are more calm and more wise, and you understand the cycle of others' existence, and you know the preliminary state of all activities. You understand everything have to go through this cycle here, and we know the consequence of all cause. So if we see somebody is angry, do we see their anger from their false self, or do we see their anger from their true self? Their false self is not in peace, but we can look beyond their true self. Their true self, it seems like us, but their true self is being covered by so many debris from the false self. That's why they are angry. So when we see somebody is not in peace, we need to look beyond it. We need to look at what is their cause. And then you can say, well, this person is angry. It's because their true self is not at peace. So once their true self is being revealed, this person will be same as me. Then you will be able to let go of the grudges. So when we understand this, we understand all things that we experience in life. It's a learning experience. We all have a different experience and different lesson plan in our life. All this lesson plan is to help us to fulfill, to discover our true self. It's a transformation process. We all have different false self. The false self makes us different. We all have different life experience. I have my life lesson need to learn. I have marriage lesson need to learn. Maybe you have a sibling lesson need to learn. This person have anger issue need to learn. This person have parenting issue need to learn. We all have different learning experience. We all have different lesson plan. And all this lesson plan is tailored and catered for ourselves. In other words, it's all custom made. That's why we all have a different life. And when we learn all our lesson plan, we will be able to uncover our false self, and we can return to our true self. So the question is, why are we suffering here? We suffer because we have not learned our lesson plan. So let's start managing our lesson plan. Let's try to pass the lesson plan. And why we have this lesson? And that's because in our previous time, we did not get a passing grade. And because we did not get a passing grade, just like school, if you did not pass next semester, you have to retake the class, right? So we are all here retaking our class. That's why we are here. Understand this, we will have a broader perspective, and that will help us to cultivate ourselves better. Here I draw an arrow. Recover and return to here. This is just an analogy. Say we are right here. We are going to return to our true self. Our true self is right here. It's before the state of our yin and yang split. This is our true self. Our true self is from the source. It's full of light, full of harmony, full of perfection. So this is where we are aiming to in terms of our Tao cultivation. All being going through life activity, I observe their return. And because I observe their return, I want to tell everybody here, Lao Tzu say, listen carefully. This two word here, fu wu, it's an expression. What I'm going to tell you is very important. Everybody, listen carefully. This is Lao Tzu saying. Everybody needs to listen carefully. And then this two text is being repeated 2 times. That means there's a lot of beings, referring to many grass, plant, trees. And of course, it's also referring to human being and animal. So Lao Tzu just used the plant as an analogy to refer to all the sentient being in this universe. So all the plant and all the sentient being grow prosperously and continuously. So this concept of returning to the roots apply to everybody. And this is the law of the universe. Let's look at this picture here. This is a picture of a rice crop. Where does the rice crop come from? It comes from the seed. So once the farmer put the seed into the ground, it will take several months of growing with proper care from the farmer. And when it reaches maturity, the crop will produce the seed. The crop will do whatever it can to produce the seed because this is the end result. And let me ask you, what happens if the crop is harvested before maturity? If the crop is harvested before maturity, can that happen? Usually a farmer would not do that because that's a waste of money, waste of effort, and waste of time. But if that happens, that means the crop is wasted. So let's go to question number 3. What happens if the human die without achieving the root? So if the crop is cut before it reaches the maturity of producing the seed, it's cut. This is the same analogy as what happened if the human died without achieving the root. Do you know anybody who died of a drug addict, who died of a cocaine? Do you know anybody who died of a suicide? This is what happened when the human died without achieving the root. They have not reached their maturity and they die. That's called waste of life. I'm sure some of you have this kind of thought, like thought of depression, thought of anxiety, maybe some suicidal thought. Some of us will experience this. It's difficult to say because life is hard. Nobody have an easy life. And when we have difficult time, when we are struggling, sometimes this kind of thought comes in. And some people choose to elevate themselves. They put themselves into some kind of activity to relieve their stress. They use drug, they use alcohol, maybe cigarette. And sometimes they might die early before their maturity. And that's waste of life. Just like this image here. Here's the image of apple. So this apple seed here, after it goes through the cycle of the growth, it becomes an apple. And when we cut out the apple, there's an apple seed. And with this apple seed, it can grow another apple tree. Each apple seed can grow apple tree. What if the apple does not want to grow apple seed? Do you think that can happen? If that happens, that means we will have no more apple to eat. So this is not the law of the nature. The law of the nature is every apple seed supposed to give apple tree. With this apple tree, it will produce a flower, it will produce the fruit, and then it will produce the seed. This is called returning to the root. So Lao Tzu is using this as an analogy. The apple seed must going through this cycle to produce the seed that it's similar to what the mother seed give it to. So same thing for human. We say we are right here and we go through life. We have to reach to our true self. We have to discover our true self. We have to discover our root. If we don't discover our root, if we don't discover our true self, what's going to happen? Life will be wasted. And think about every one of us here. I'm sure we have not returned to our root because we are still here. We have not discovered our true self. In order to reach to the state of true self, we have to reach to that state of perfection. And because we have not returned to our root, that's why we are in this cycle of reincarnation. If we don't return to our true self, then life is wasted. So in our lifetime, try our best effort to return to our root, because true self is innate, it's inborn, it was given to us. And human, we need to cultivate. This is the law of the universe, law of the nature. We're supposed to discover ourselves, return ourselves to true self so that we can illuminate and we can brighten ourselves. So one day when our flesh is no longer needed, then we can return to our root and return to our source. If we don't return to our source, what's going to happen? Then we will go through reincarnation again. So here's the etymology of root. The word root is made out of two characters. This character means tree, such as the picture here. This character, it means I. As you can see, here is the symbol of I. And then underneath, it's like a knife, but I don't want to put knife. It could be some kind of a sharp object. Sharp eye, it could mean determination of growth, like somebody have a very strong will. So if we look at the live example here, we can see sprouting on the eye root from this plant here, it's this little white thing here. Every one here is the eye root. Each one of this can grow another branch. So this eye root, it lays below the soil level, probably 1.5 inch to 2 inch. And here is the trunk, and here is the eye. Is the eye here. Perhaps we can better understand the concept with potato eyes. If you have a potato that you buy from a market and you let it sit for a couple of months, you will see potato eye. And each one of this will allow it to grow into another potato plant. So eye root, it means an underground growth of sprouting close to the soil surface, produce root, branches, and stem. So each one can produce its branch and stem on its own. And the eyes on the potato is the growing point. Each with little stem bud is a growth opportunity. Going back to this text here, the figurative meaning is the root, the origin, the source, because here is the source of the new growth. So it can also be interpreted as the source of all causes or all things. And perceiving the origin with eyes, with determination, with perception, such as using the sharp eyes. In order for the potato eyes to break through, it needs to have some kind of sharp edges. You can see the tip of the potato eye, it's sharp, right? That's how it can break through the skin. Same thing here. In the earlier slide, we talked about all life circle activity must return to the root. Lao Tzu continue on. Returning to the root is called stillness. Returning is the process of the movement, because the movement consists of growth and the process. And when it returns to the root, it's called stillness. Stillness is another synonym to describe stillness is source, origin, and root. So when the movement is continue growing, and during this process of the continuation, eventually when it goes to the end, it's stillness, because it's the inborn nature. It's just like the seed. It does not move. It just awaits for another plantation. And the movement we understand is this image here. So in terms of our human nature, we are all in the process of returning to our root. We have not returned yet, but we are in this process. So what are the purpose of both? The purpose of this movement is to nurture the seed, to harbor the seed. If we look at apple, inside the apple there is the seed. So the apple, it has the content. So the content is to provide the protection for the seed inside. So it's provide the harbor space for its true self. And the stillness, what's the purpose of it? The stillness, the purpose is the continuation of life so that it can create the cycle of life. So keep in mind, if we have this stillness, if the seed remain in our shelf or in the box, it will remain as a seed. So that's why it's called stillness. Returning to the root is called stillness. So stillness before planting and after planting, it's still. Because before planting, it's the seed. It has the vital sign. It has not yet manifested. Once you plant it in the ground, then the movement starts. And after you go through this growing period and procreation, eventually it will reach to the seed. So before the planting and after the planting, it's called stillness. That's why it says returning to the root, it's called stillness. And both resemble each other. That's why we have a continuation of life. As a cultivator, we must understand the purpose of a human life is to return to the root, return to our true self, not living in our false self, because our false self is temporary. It fluctuates. It only provides us the playground for the true self. Once the purpose is fulfilled, we're supposed to reach to our true self. So knowing this, we need to be able to clear the cloud in our sky. If we can clear the cloud in our sky, then we can manifest our brightness, manifest our illumination. And a lot of time when we feel bad and when we feel doom or heavy, it's because our false self, our cloud is bigger than the sun. That's why there is a rainy day or there's a thunder. So it's important to keep our sky clear. The next one, stillness, is called returning to the source. The seed were all from the source. All the seed have gone through life circles and will further produce more cycles. We all need to return to the root. If we die without returning to our root, we have wasted our life. If we wasted our life, then that means we get a failing grade, then we have to come again to take the same class, to take the same lesson. That's called wasting of life. This is like the analogy Lao Tzu used. Cutting a crop before it's ripened, it's a waste. So why do we want to waste our life? Why do we want to cut our life short? We all know that some people decide to end their life short. We've seen that on TV. Whitney Houston, the singer that I love so much, and many celebrities, they decide to cut their life early. And that's because they only have one channel. They have been looking at their channel in their lifetime. And the channel that they watch, it's only for sale. They don't know that there's another channel exists. But we are different because we are all studying TaoTeChing together. We know that we have two channels. So next time when the situation comes, we have to choose between two channels. Make sure we choose the good one. And the good one is our true self, the channel of the true self. Number 3, returning to the source is to illuminate, to brighten, and to lighten our true self. That we all know already. Returning to the source is called the natural law. Everybody have to return to its source, regardless the plants, the agriculture, the animal, the human, all the sentient being that's movable, that needs to return to the root, to return to the source. So all this is done naturally. It's done naturally voluntary without force. This is the law of nature. Same thing for us. We need to return to our root. But keep in mind, our default setting, our manufacturer default setting is false self. So we have to adjust ourselves, constantly change our perspective from the false self to the true self. So the natural law is procreation and circle of life. If living being cannot return to the source, it cannot procreate. The life will end. Imagine the living being cannot return to the source, it cannot procreate. Imagine any plant or vegetable that does not provide a seed. Just imagine that. Apple does not produce seed. I don't think we will have this thing called apple. Orange is the same. Peanut. What about strawberry? What about cucumber? Cucumber all have seed. If on a plantation, they don't have a seed, I'm sure we don't have any plantation at all. We will be like a place that without vegetable. So what happened? The crop continued to grow without seed. Can it be possible? Imagine there's an apple tree. It just continue grow and grow without giving a seed. It just grow 100 years, thousands of years, millions of years. Same thing, human will have nothing to eat. All the sentient beings have no interaction, have no web of life. So this natural law exists in our universe. It should also apply to human too. This is the natural law. So it's important to follow this natural law. Lao Tzu reminds us to follow the natural law, to return to our true self. The natural law is to achieve the emptiness. And here I highlight a keyword. Chapter 15 that we just studied tell us how to make our return journey. In order to maintain the perspective of our true self, living in our true self, is to be cautious as an elephant crossing the river in the winter time, and to be cautious as a monkey, being aware of surrounding, and being courteous as a guest. And if we have anger rise, we always want to melt our eyes and live in simplicity and have an open mind and mingle with others. So these are the key points that Lao Tzu reminds us how to make our return to our root. Knowing the natural law is called clarity. If we know the natural law, we will have better understanding of life. We understand why we come to this life, and that's because we have not passed our lesson plan. That's why we have this life experience. We have this life situation that's custom made for us to learn. And what's the purpose of our life is to discover our true self. Living according to the natural law. Another term is universal law. So here, knowing can be elaborated as somebody know, but even though we know, we have to follow it, and be able to follow it is to maintain it and to manifest it. And this is the natural law. And when somebody can follow all this, it's in clarity. So keep in mind, our life is tailored for us. In our life, we all have some relationship issues, emotional issue, life situation, our challenge and suffering. This is all for our transformation, our cultivation, our life. Because without going through all these steps, we will not be able to return to our root. Here is the etymology for mean, which is brightness. So brightness is made up of two characters. The left character is sun, as you can see here. The left character is moon. Sun and the moon, it means brightness, literally. Brightness with sunlight and moonlight. So figuratively, it means perceive all things in the universe with clarity. So this sunlight and the moonlight, the sun represent the white part. The moon represent the dark part. So when the sun and the moon works together, that means it's the formation of the universe. Formation of the universe, and with the operation of the sun and the moon with clarity, then it shows that somebody has this wisdom and comprehension. Knowing the natural law is called clarity. On the other hand, not knowing the natural law, wastefulness lead to destruction. So this two texts here, it means wasted effort. Some translation use the term worthless. Worthless, it's something that's already worthless to start in the beginning. So in the end, it's still worthless. But wasted effort, here I put down, it's somebody put a lot of effort doing something, but then in the end, the effort is wasted. Just like our lifetime, we spend our lifetime on earth, say, how many years I should give? Say 100 years. We live our life here on earth for 100 years. But then if we don't know the natural law, this 100 years is all wasted, isn't it? All living beings must return to the root. This is the natural law. Human cannot depart from this natural law. So this one, we already answered the question. If the wheat crop are cut before harvest season, that means the crop is wasted. If we die before we reach spiritual maturity, that means our life is also wasted too. Life being wasted, that means that we are living in the state of illusion, living in a state of false self. Look at this picture here. This picture here is a picture of woman. But if you take a closer look, this picture is not really a woman. It's made out of flowers image. So in our life, we may look glamorous at some point. Maybe we are exciting and we are happy and we have joys in some moment. But those are only temporary. Those are only an illusion. So it's important to understand this. We all have false self and true self. The purpose of false self is like the growth and the movement. And that growth and the movement is to nurture the true self. It provides the harbor for the true self. So we do need both. We do not want the false self to overshadow the true self. We're supposed to have false self as our background and true self as the actor. We should live our true self to its full potential and false self as the minor perspective. If we live in the perspective of false self, it will lead to all this, which we have all experienced. So it's important to switch to another channel, to true self. To discover to our true self, one of the important things is to receiving Tao, because when we receive Tao, it enables us to first recognize we have our true self. Most of us know what true self is, but majority of human population, they do not know that they have true self. They think that they only live one's lifetime. And when they die, they rely their living experience through what they see, through what they feel physically, through their human mind. They have no awareness of their true self. Therefore, receiving the Tao from the Tao Master with heavenly mandate is the first step of recovering or returning to our root. And when we do that, we are no longer trapped in our false self. We have just mentioned 7 verses here, and this one is the next slide. Lao Tzu used Chang several times, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Chang, it means the natural law. And what is a natural law? It means to return to the root. So I want to mention that this word 常, it has the same meaning as chapter 1, line 1. The Tao can be spoken, is not the eternal Tao. The only difference I would say is that in chapter 1, line 1, this 常 here, it's an adjective. But in this chapter here, it's a noun. So a noun we can interpret with different nouns, such as constancy, unchanging truth, law of universe, law of nature, that something happen every day, every moment, forever and eternity. So that's the only difference. It has the same meaning. So in our previous verses, it talks about the internal cultivation. Now, Lao Tzu is going to talk about external cultivation. Knowing the natural law is to embrace. Again, knowing, it's not just to know, it's all this verb here. To comprehend, to be aware, to follow, to manifest, and to share. That's what we see, all this here. It all applies to here. This word embrace, I use this word embrace. It's because embrace has the meaning of using two arms to physically hold the other being or the other person. Accept is to accept the ideas. And accommodate is to give a space. So I think the word embrace, maybe it's a better choice for me. So I choose this term, embrace. So again, we have our false self. Our false self is to take care of our true self. And human come from the same source. So we are all perfect. I'm talking from our true self perspective. We all come from the same source. Because the source is perfect and we are perfect because we come from the source. So we're supposed to treat each other the same, although we all look different due to our false self. So let's not judging one another. Let's not differentiate one another. Let's create harmony among each other. All living beings have source, so we should accept all the differences during this growth period. Whatever we see in our life, every sentient being are experiencing their growth period. So let's apply this knowledge into our daily life, whether we are eating, whether we are sleeping. By the way, when we eat, we want to observe their source. Animal have their source, same like human. Animal come from the same source too. We need to apply that in our daily life. And when we work, when we encounter different colleagues, look at people from the perspective of true self, then you will be able to accommodate others easily. Embracing is being impartial. And because you can embrace others and because you understand everybody comes from the source, we can treat everyone unbiasedly and be fair to all. All humans have the same true self, therefore we are all perfect. This we already talked about. The false self makes us different. Buddhas have the same prescription too. Buddha, in his lifetime, he helped those in poverty, the sick. He helped the sick, the law, and the weak. Buddha encourages not to see the people with sunglasses. The sunglasses come with different color. So whatever we see, it's being layered. True self and inner nature is equal. These two terms are just synonymous. Being impartial is to be kingly. Kingly, it means to be king, sovereign and ruler and leader. Leader being respected, being admired. Although Lao Tzu is talking about king and the ruler and the leader, but Lao Tzu is talking in character, spiritual perspective. So this person being kingly has no real authority, does not possess any land, and does not govern any people, but the people come to themselves. And it's not talking about politically or territorially. When we look at this verse or any chapter or any verse, we should look at it from our individual perspective. Being kingly, we can apply that in our family. We can be admired. We can be respected. It's just how we cultivate ourselves and how we perceive ourselves. And we can be kingly in our community, in our organization, and in our work. Jesus, although he was never be called a king, but in Bible, he was referred almost like a king. As you can see in the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. And Buddha, he was never a king, although he was a prince, but he left his kingdom and he did not want that authority. He left the kingdom and he went on to be his journey to seek for eternity. And in the end of life, people call him Lord Buddha. And Confucius, he was never a king, but he was called the exotic king in different time period in the Chinese history. So being a king is to place in a higher powerful level spiritually in terms of their character, their virtue, their dignity. So the text of king can be interpreted this way. As you can see, this is a pictogram of the king. It's very easy to interpret, but let me point out to you, this top line represents heaven, the bottom line represents earth, and human is in the middle. So being kingly, being a leader, being a spiritual leader or political leader, somebody needs to be able to communicate with heaven, able to resonate with the earth, and being able to have harmony with human. So this is the pictogram of this word Huang. So the next three verse, being kingly is according to heaven. According to heaven is to be with Tao. Being with Tao is everlasting. So the term Tao is according to nature, everlasting. So when somebody is being kingly, this person is in union with heaven. His speech, behavior, and thought, it's all in resonation with heaven, with nature, and with Tao. If somebody can be kingly, that means the person is being kingly in the human level and also in the universal level, being able to treat the same way to other sentient beings, animal, other species. And when the person achieved that, that person also achieved in the state of living according to Tao in heaven. So it's the law of the universe. The physical phenomenon will change, but the natural law and the universal law would never change. Here comes to the last verse. Even the body perishes. There's no more suffering. So Lao Tzu say, if we can follow all this, with internal cultivation and external cultivation, we will make no more mistake. We will have no more sin and no more reincarnation. When this thing happens, we will not suffer because we have all the clarity. We can embrace others and we treat others with no bias. If we can fulfill our internal cultivation and external cultivation, we will living in a blissful life, living in joy and harmony. And of course, we can escape from reincarnation, right? So this word bu, I mark it in red. It means no. So no more suffering, no more danger, and no more destruction. This is an etymology for Dai. Dai, I thought it's an important word here because it's the last word. It's the last word. I think it's important, so I want to bring it up. So Dai is made up of two characters. There's two here. This one, it's picture of skeleton, bare bones. So this means something bad happened. Somebody becomes skeleton. What does that mean? Maybe some people experience famine, already die, experience illness, already die, cancer, already die, trauma, whether it's physical trauma or psychological trauma, regardless, all the situation, this person is in this skeleton shape. And this one, Tai, it's a platform or a table or counter in the station. Interesting, here has the shape of mouth. Could it be that the illness is caused by mouth? Because a lot of time we get sick is because what we eat, or maybe it's not enough eat. Someone died of starvation. Maybe it's this person is experience danger such as prosecution, such as some kind of hardship. This person is in this platform. Here we can interpret as this person is in this situation. Somebody want to get out but cannot. So this person is stuck in that situation. So figuratively, it means suffering, danger. And this danger is close to death. It also means funeral, deterioration, and destruction. Oh, by the way, all the picture that I get for entomology and the pictogram is from this website here. We almost come to an end of this study. I want to point out to you is that so Lao Tzu start from the chapter beginning with the analogy of life activities. He talks about plantation, the root. Everything must return to their root. And from the root, Lao Tzu used this to imply human also have roots too. Our root is our source. Where do we come from? That's our root. We come from the universe. Therefore, we must return to our universe. If we don't return to our universe, we will be wasting our life. Here, I underline the keyword for internal cultivation for the second section and the third section. The third section is the external cultivation. External cultivation is the action or the verb to embrace, to be impartial, to be kingly, to live according to heaven, to be with Tao, to be everlasting. And the internal Tao cultivation is to return to the root, stillness, the source, and to be clear. So all this is for internal cultivation. This is external. And this one here, the one that I highlight, knowing the natural law. This is the turning point from internal cultivation to external cultivation. So again, Lao Tzu have chapter 16 in 3 sections. Lao Tzu talks about that as a cultivator, we start from oneself, start from our own cultivation, keeping our mirror clean. If our mirror is clean, then we can watch through clarity and we can watch with wisdom and be able to observe others' return. And this is the universal law of procreation, including human. And practicing Tao can start from oneself to the other. And when we follow the human Tao, we can also achieve the heavenly Tao too. And here I make a little flow chart. So with internal cultivation, here I list out returning to its root, stillness, the source, and clarity. And then here is the turning point. Once we understand, we must manifest externally. And here it's all the external manifestation. And when we manifest the external cultivation, we will be able to escape suffering and danger, even when our body perish. I have just concluded chapter 16. My next sharing session will be chapter 17, Transformation of Tao. And because chapter 17 is a short chapter, I will share with you the study of pictogram of Tao. This is an image that I want to study with you next time. If mistakes were made or said during today's sharing, I ask the forgiveness from the Heavenly Mother, Buddha Maitreya, Qigong Buddha, Sijun Simu, patriarchs, elders, and senior masterly and junior masterly. Thank you for your participation.